It's always. Hey, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this Board of Supervisors meeting. There was a nice, who said morning? Thank you. I'd like to call this Board of Supervisors meeting to order. The date is December 14th. The time is 9:03 a.m. I'm going to ask you to please stand. I'm going to ask Birgit Flatiger, our district attorney, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then remain standing for an invocation from Pastor Lance Lowell from the neighborhood church.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord, we continue to thank you for the blessings that you've given this community. We thank you for this rain that we desperately need. It's a reminder that everything we need comes from you. We pray for an increase of the snowpack. Fill our reservoirs, lakes, rivers. Lord, may 2022 be a year of restoration from the drought in our state. During this Christmas season, I pray that our community will experience the peace you came to bring. May we show kindness to one another in extraordinary ways. Help us care for those in need, to love like you loved us. We are never more like you than when we prioritize others and sacrifice to meet their needs. Help our community, Lord, to respond with generosity to the needs around us. I pray for this board and each of its members and their families. Give them courage, integrity, wisdom to meet the tasks that they face in our community. Bless them, bless their families, bless our community. Help them lead our community in greater unity in ways as we deal with our differences. May what happens here today in this meeting further serve to bless this community and all that we love. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, D.A. Flatiger. All right, we're going to move on to item 3, which is the public comment period. Again, it's an opportunity to speak on anything that is not on today's posted agenda. So if you're going to speak on something that is coming up later or want to speak on one of the consent items, that would be the appropriate time. Also, we're going to ask you to limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. I do have a few speaker cards. If you don't have to fill out a speaker card in order to speak, but the first one is from Donna Linder. Good morning, Donna.
Good morning. I didn't realize it was the last meeting, so I didn't get on the agenda. But I just wanted to come down and let the board and the citizens here and that are watching know that the Elections Division, the Registrar of Voters, I guess I should tell you, I'm the Clerk Recorder Registrar of Voters. Sorry. We're doing a voter education workshop. We're doing one in each of our cities. They're open to all the public. Anyone can come to those. We're going to talk about things like, what does our office do? We get questions all the time if it's a full-time job, and it is. And how to register to vote, how to mark your ballot. There's, some confusion on different things on the ballots. What are we doing about security? What are some of the new laws and how Stanislaus County is going to handle those laws and what it'll look like to vote in your future? And things like that. So what is Canvass? What are we doing those 30 days after an election? We get that question a lot too. So we're just there to answer all the questions of our public. We're going to show a presentation and try to answer them, but be open to questions as long as they have them. So these are in every city, and you don't have to go to the city you live in. You can come to any one of those. And so I just wanted to come and let you know. I'm also speaking to all the city clerks at all the board meetings for the cities just to get the word out. Okay, thank you.
So, Donna, can I ask one question? You're doing workshops. This is on the voter side. Are you still going to do workshops for candidates? I know you've done that in the past, or I think it was sponsored through you.
We have done workshops for candidates. With COVID and our remodel, we don't really have a lot of space. So the actual PowerPoint that we use for candidates is online now on our website.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you
for coming in. Appreciate it. Next up, Stephen Morrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, as fellow supervisors, Mr. Hayes and Mr. Bowes. It's been a tough year. We have faced the COVID crisis, homelessness, affordable housing, drug addiction, and we just finished the redistricting process. And there's more to discuss in today's meeting. But I want to offer a few comments on the redistricting and elective processes. Our commissioners put in a lot of effort in a very, very short time to draw the new districts for our county. Are they perfect? No, they're not. But I think they're fairly drawn, and they're going to serve us well for the next decade. Now, it has been commented in an earlier meeting that the makeup of this board doesn't necessarily reflect the current makeup of our community. But let's review our history a little bit. 200 years ago, you had to be a white, male, land or business owner in order to vote. And guess what? Most elected offices were held by white, male, land or business owners. Elected boards don't necessarily make up the total community's makeup, but they do reflect the makeup of those who actually vote, and that's the important thing. Now, changing that attitude is not the duty of this board. That's on us, the members in this gallery, and the members of our community. We all have a sphere of influence, whether it's just a small group meeting for coffee or leading a large community association. So we have to encourage the people that we know who aren't registered to vote to go register and then go out and vote. And now the process is even easier because your ballot, once you register, comes to your house. You don't even have to go out and vote at a polling place anymore. Now, habits are hard to change, but we're strong in this county because of our diversity. And the more we get people to participate in our elective process, the better off our county is going to be. And I've said this before from this podium. We can get a lot more accomplished by shaking hands with one another than by pointing fingers at each other. Now, with more involvement in the elective process, that is going to bring a more diverse pool of candidates for office. Now, not everyone can serve an elective office. It's a substantial time commitment, but all of us can offer and engage just a little bit to help the process along. And we all realize that you elected members spend a lot of time on this job, which is technically a part-time position. There's another reason for us to vote. We have a duty to all those who gave their lives, so we have that freedom to vote. Those brave folks come from all walks of life. Bullets and torpedoes do not discriminate. They are buried in cemeteries around the world. They're lost at the bottom of the sea, and over 900 of them are interred at the USS Arizona in Pearl Harbor. Each time we return a ballot, we say thank you for being there to protect our country. As we look now to 2022, I'm still feeling positive very much for our county, and I'm ready to help where I can. Mr. Chairman and Supervisors, thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate it. Okay, next I have Jordan Hertwig. Good morning.
Good morning. Just set myself a little timer here. So good morning. I want to start by thanking you all for the tireless work you do for our county. These past couple months have made me very proud to live in this county. My name is Jordan Hertwig, and I'm a registered nurse. I spoke with you back in August about the vaccine mandate, and I sadly stand before you with the update that as of December 5th, I've been placed on unpaid administrative leave and am set to be terminated on January 10th for failure to comply with the COVID-19 vaccine mandate. I stand before you to tell my story, not necessarily because I expect a change in my circumstances. I have made my peace with it, but that people will know what the process has been like for those under the mandate. I want to encourage others that they are not alone, and I desire to empower those who can stand and make a difference in their respective areas of influence. Here's my abbreviated timeline of events since August. I filed for a medical exemption over concern for a previous open heart surgery. This exemption was denied, then approved for 3.5 weeks, then put back under review, and then ultimately denied. After observing what I consider as a healthcare worker to be grievous violations of medical codes of ethics and violations of medical freedom related to this forced vaccination process, I filed for a religious exemption. This was approved for 8.5 weeks, then reevaluated and denied as of November 29th. I received both denial emails within an hour and a half of each other. There are 3 inevitable tragedies that I see on our horizon as this kind of action is allowed. First is the incredible loss of healthcare workers that have proven they are not just healthcare workers, they are those with strong conviction. These healthcare workers, the police officers, the teachers, the corrections officers, all of these fine people, the heroes we called them, will be terminated for the very thing that makes them great at what they do, their conviction. They did not go to work every day during the pandemic without conviction or by being lackadaisical in it. While they fire nurses, they ignore the fact that the hospitals are short-staffed, and they ignore that us unvaccinated nurses were testing negative before every single shift. They fire us because our conviction is getting in the way of them being able to say they have 100% compliance. Well, I'm sorry to say that the real tragedy is that these hospitals are throwing away a group of people that help make their facilities great at caring for human beings. Some hospitals keep stating they need to assess whether our beliefs are sincerely held. I can tell you right now, between the pandemic and the roller coaster we've been put on since August with this vaccine mandate, if we have not proven that we are sincere by now, I'm not sure what else would. The specifics of our beliefs may vary, but the sincerity of our conviction we certainly hold in common. The second tragedy I see is the theft of autonomy of our providers and our doctors. In my quest to get a medical exemption certificate, wonderful physicians have said to me, I sympathize with you, I truly do, but my hands are tied. This mandate is suppressing the very people that vowed to do no harm. We say we want to follow the science, but we're silencing our frontline scientists. These poor physicians are not allowed to say what they truly think or voice if they have doubts, at least when it comes to the COVID vaccine. If we expect them to fulfill their vow, they need to be given freedom. They need to be allowed to say more than, well, the CDC says the benefits outweigh the risks, so you should just do it. That's not really good enough. They must be allowed to take each individual person's health into consideration and either excuse them, even for a time, or offer other alternatives. They are the ones dealing with the patients, the real people. They have entrusted them with their thoughts, emotions, and gut instincts. And this leads me to my last point. The third tragedy I see is the erosion of individuality we hold dear for every patient we care for. I cannot tell you how many times as a labor and delivery nurse, the doctor has offered my patient what is considered to be a reasonable intervention, something we do every single day. And sometimes the patient would just say, no, I just don't want that. Sometimes they had a reason why, and sometimes they didn't. I can't tell you how many times that happened, and later the provider came back and said, I'm so happy you told me not to do that. Your mama instinct was right. In my 10 years as a nurse, this is my experience over and over and over. And we allowed for that variation, that gut instinct. We listened to our patients. But now when it comes to this mandate, we aren't listening, and we aren't offering reasonable alternatives, and we should be. Now, I don't want to leave today without telling you what is most important to me, and while I believe continuing with this mandate the way it is will lead to these tragedies, I do not despair. I have a hope that's gotten me through the pandemic, through this mandate process, and will continue to see me through, and that is Jesus Christ. I believe he called me on this earth to care for others, which has led me down this path. He has forgiven me my sins and given me life and the hope of heaven, and that is where my hope comes from. If you need a firm foundation that nothing in this world can shake, it's Jesus. He's the reason I stand on my conviction, and he gives me the strength to do it. My religious belief compels me to speak when my conscience is pricked and to stand on my conviction, and I'm thankful to live in a country that I can freely speak like this, and you also kindly listen to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jordan.
Jordan, who is your employer?
Kaiser.
Kaiser. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next card is Countryman. Assuming Countryman wants, oh, Margaret. Good morning.
Good morning. Merry almost Christmas. You know why I'm here, Mr. Hayes, Mr. Bose. Mr. Bose, Helen Condit told me that my representatives will not speak to me. Mr. Bose will not speak to me. So I had a sit down with Josh Harder on Wednesday, November 10th. I told him I had a personal attorney, David Renteria. I'd contacted a land use attorney, which was Ralph Ogden. And now I will have to contact a federal attorney, which will probably be G. Williams in the Bay Area. He did not insult me by suggesting that I might consult an attorney, since I had already told him this. But I just got a letter, House of Representatives, public document, official business. Ms. Countryman, thank you for contacting Josh Harder regarding your issue regarding the Board of Zoning Adjustment for Stanislaus County. Our casework team feels honored to have served you. As you know, they mailed you the documents. We are sending this letter because you contacted us on February 23rd, 2021 regarding your appeal with the county and wanting a refund for the $354. Our office was able to connect you with your council member, Chris Rickey, your Board of Supervisors rep, Manny Graywall. Where's Mr. Graywall? There he is. Since this is a city and county issue, as well as a legal issue, we can refer you to your local representatives or the California Bar Association. The next steps will be for you to work with your representatives on this issue, the representatives that won't speak to me. If you would, you can contact the California Bar Association for further assistance, and they give me the number. Please do not hesitate. If we can be of further assistance, thank you for letting us serve you. So I will send to the State Bar the 2012 printout with your the posting that I gave Mr. Bose that says balcony, that we were talking about a two-story garage, but the posting says balcony, which he gave to Donna Linder, which is really interesting that she's here today, because that's who that was filed with, and that is perjury, because we were not talking about a balcony. We were talking about a two-story garage. So if you lie to her about what the appeal was about, her office, I'm just interested in what else you would lie to her office about, especially as she is the registrar of voters, as well as the clerk and the clerk recorder. Now, our appeal was heard by the recording secretary for the city of Modesto. She officiated. She counted those votes. And the site plan used for that appeal is a two-story garage. Now, the site plan's interesting in that you can drive through the house and then through the garage and right into my bedroom, which is interesting. The balcony you told her this was about is 102 square feet. Do you realize why we use the word balcony? Because a storage shed, which this was built on a storage shed permit, can only be 500 square feet. So your thought, Mr. Hayes and Mr. Bose, is if you add 102 square feet to a tool shed, you get a two-story garage. Is my 5 minutes up?
Not yet.
So I will be sending that to the State Bar, and you can explain why you registered it as a balcony when its legal description is a 600 square foot two-story garage, which makes it about 12 or 1,400. Okay? That's where we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret.
Oh, I should ask, are there any questions?
Did you
Do you
state
have
your
any?
name for the record? I'm just, were you guys, I know we know you, but.
My name?
Yeah.
Margaret Countryman.
Yeah.
Yeah, you served.
I
your
say it, but
restraining order.
I know, I only called you up as Countryman, that's
Right.
why. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay,
Any questions?
thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll see how this plays out.
Okay. That's the last speaker card I have. Does anyone else want to speak during public comment? please come forward. All right. Seeing no one, I'll close the public comment period. We're going to move on to the consent calendar, which is... Oh, yes. Thank you very much. As is always wonderful, the clerk of the board reminds me of how unorganized I am. So there was a report out that we received called The Vestiges of Environmental Racism. During public comment, we received a public comment from Whitney, Amaya, Genevieve Abedin, Save Our Shores, and this is mostly regarding the garbage burning plant, from Kirtik Raj and Davis Harper, that will be added to the consent or the public comment during this meeting. Thank you very much. All right, the consent calendar, I do have 2 items we are going to pull, item B15 and E1. Does any other board member want to pull or comment on a consent item?
B14.
B14. So now we're at B14, B15, and E1. Any others? Would any member of the public like to comment on any item? Okay. Seeing none, I will bring it back. We'll start with B14. Supervisor Condit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, it's a constant theme that we hear about, whether we're talking with our constituency or whether we're reading our local newspapers, the Modesto Bee, for instance, about the need for housing. And I know with my previous experience in economic development, as well as my current position being a county supervisor, I hear that on a daily basis quite regularly, that we need more housing, we need more affordable housing. And that is really the only way we're ever going to be able to attract more industry and better paying jobs to our county. And my prior experience working with Opportunity Stanislaus as an economic development specialist and meeting with different businesses and who are interested in trying to relocate to Stanislaus County, they look at the numbers pretty specifically. They want to see the rooftops. And quite recently in this last year of being a county supervisor, and my number 1 priority being trying to locate a 24-hour after-hours medical facility on the west side in Patterson specifically, meeting with Kaiser, meeting with different providers, medical providers. They want to see those rooftops. They want to see those numbers because at the end of the day, they're just a business like anyone else. And I do believe that this item does add to that. I believe that this item will be beneficial. This is something that the city of Patterson has the prerogative of doing and pursuing. It was unanimously approved by the Planning Commission. It was unanimously approved by the City Council. And I do believe it is a fair deal. It is, they will be paying 12%. 12% of that portion of that property will be developed. And if any other developer, anybody else who has a project out there, any other landowner who wants to do the same, they will go through the same process that these developers are going through the city of Patterson. And they will also pay their fair share. And that is really our responsibility in this agreement, is making sure that our county is whole, that they are paying their fair share, and that is our responsibility in providing oversight. So I do wholeheartedly support this agreement, and I do think that the city of Patterson is in the right in wanting to pursue this development.
Thank you for your comments, and I will make sure the public understands that Supervisor Condit has been a strong advocate for getting a deal done on this project. It's pretty complicated, and you have varying opinions, and board members change, but he's been again, a guiding light for us to get this done. So thank you very much, Supervisor Condit. Okay, I'm going to move on to comments. So that seems like it's going to go. I'm going to call up Birgit Flatiger on B15. She wanted to comment. And so everyone knows, I'm always supposed to read these. B15 is the approval to amend the salary and position allocation resolution reflecting a transfer of the county clerk recorder's classification of elected official salary band F to elected official salary band G. It was through the chief executive's office.
And actually, it would be both items just together.
Okay.
Just a general comment.
And then let me just tell you what E1 is then really quick. for the public. It's the approval of the amended employment agreement, and we'll have to comment on that before we take it up between Stanislaus County and the Chief Executive Officer, Jody Hayes. Go ahead, Birgit.
Thank you very much. So good morning, everyone. I'm here this morning as a long-term county employee over 31 years and as a long-term elected department head over 15 years. I'm here this morning to speak on behalf of my fellow elected department heads and those who will soon follow in our footsteps. My purpose is not to begrudge anyone else their salary and their benefits. They are very well earned. Nor is it my purpose to increase my own salary because, as I made clear in September, I will not run for re-election and I will retire in a year. My purpose is to highlight a very significant pay and benefit differential between appointed department heads and elected department heads. And the appointed department heads have the ability to negotiate their salaries when they're hired, and they're eligible for annual pay raises of up to 5% until they reach the top of their band. The 6 elected department heads have salaries that are set at a specific level which do not change except by direct action of the Board of Supervisors. I will note that both categories of department heads do receive the same 2 to 3% salary increases that the management and unrepresented get following salary negotiations with unions in the county. There are 6 elected department heads: the sheriff, the DA, the assessor, the auditor controller, the treasurer, tax collector, and the clerk recorder. Appointed department heads are many and varied. They include the public defender, behavioral health director, HSA director, CSA director, and public works director, all of whose salaries top out at the same level as the sheriff and the DA. So where does the difference come into play? Benefits, which translate into actual income. The county is very generous when it comes to time off, and most are very grateful for that. Appointed department heads with 21 years of service earn 200 hours or 5 weeks of vacation annually. They also accrue 32 hours of vacation floats and 56 hours of management leave. That, of course, does not include the 96 hours of sick leave. What that means is an appointed department head can take 88 hours of time off each year without touching their vacation accruals, which grow each year. Appointed department heads, like other county employees, can cash out unused vacation every year, which can help with college tuition, buying a car, paying for a vacation. They are also entitled to cash it out when they retire, which has traditionally been and still is a valid way to boost retirement income. While the county certainly encourages all employees, including department heads, to take vacation time, the fact is, depending on your job assignment, the workload, and staffing levels, it can be very difficult to take anywhere near that amount of time off. When I first had Stan Sarah calculate retirement projections for me, they included the maximum vacation cash out for appointed department heads, which is 232.44 hours, just over 1 year's worth of annual vacation accrual. I had to have them redo the projections because as an elected department head, I do not accrue any vacation or sick time. They did not know that, nor did staff at the CEO's office when I first broached this as an issue of real concern in terms of equity and compensation among similarly situated department heads. No elected department head accrues vacation or sick time, and that is true throughout the state. There is therefore no ability to cash out or convert vacation or sick time during the year or at retirement. So what does this mean, and what's the impact? The impact on annual compensation can be very significant depending upon how many hours an appointed department head chooses to cash out each year. In addition, and of more significance, as calculated by Stan Sarah, when a department head cashes out 232 hours of vacation, it increases his or her retirement benefits by 11.2%. That is a retirement that is 11.2% higher than what an elected department head will earn. I think you will all agree as elected officials that being an elected official is certainly an honor and a privilege. It is also a lot of work. I hope you agree that your elected department heads should be compensated as well as your department heads, as your appointed department heads. I applaud you for increasing the salary of the clerk recorder. It was time. I congratulate you on recognizing the fine work of CEO Hayes. He deserves it. I ask you to revisit the appropriate level of compensation for the 6 elected department heads. In light of the impact that vacation and sick leave benefits have on their true compensation levels on a yearly basis and at retirement. So that's really all I wanted to share with you.
It's pretty freeing retiring, isn't it?
It is, indeed.
You say what's on your mind.
It is.
So I think it's for the public's edification, when the county does salary surveys, we have eight county average. And that's what we use when we are negotiating raises for pretty much all 4,600 employees, including department heads. But because department heads are locked in, they need to know their salary before they run for office. We just went through the salary surveys, and that's why the clerk recorder, which is a pretty unique position because every county lumps different, the DA is the DA, the sheriff's the sheriff. They're pretty unique. But when you get into the clerk recorder's office and she's doing elections, sometimes it's elections and auditor together. So there's always a commingling. So it's very difficult to get a true salary survey of our clerk recorder. There's, I think, only one. There was only one other county. So we move them within bands, and that's included with the Board of Supervisors. The salary set the same way through 8 county average minus 20%. The only difference is the Board of Supervisors takes about a 20% cut over the midpoint of the 8 Valley counties. So, and I like to break this down easier. When you're a sergeant in the Sheriff's Department, you can get overtime. When you become a lieutenant, you lose your overtime. And so there's a compaction issue. So we're always dealing with essentially what we're hearing from DA Flatiger, that you're trying to make unique so that people want to move up in the organization, and you want leadership to move up. Sometimes there's not an incentive to move up because either you're capped on your overtime, especially if you're a go-getter and you're willing to work extra time. The advantage, and then the flip side of that, is that when you're an elected official, the elected officials, although they don't get vacation cash outs, there's no requirement for them to show up to work. They can take vacation, and that's not true of any of our department heads. I'm just telling the public, much like us, there's an obligation to show up here on Tuesday, but in order to earn your salary, you want to be in the community, you want to do lots of things. So there's the positive and the negative, and I think we just heard from you some of the shortfalls and shortcomings of not being able to cap out. PEPRA is starting to cap much of that. That's not happening with our department heads because they're all long-term employees, legacy employees. But PEPRA is very cognizant of that because some people,
PEPRA.
PEPRA. Did I say PEPRA?
Yeah, you said PEPRA.
Pension reform. Yeah, I'm sorry. Ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. I was having a ringer up here for every time someone used an acronym. But pension reform was passed in 2013, I believe, by Governor Brown, and signed it to allow these cash outs to spike essentially your retirement, because some people ended up with more money in retirement every year in retirement than they had in their salary, which I think most people would agree is not necessarily a fair way to do business either, because it was unsustainable. So duly noted. Any other comments from the board?
I'm just going to, Birgit, appreciate your passion for this and the time and effort you put into this, and I'm sure it'll be continuing a discussion that we'll have, but very much appreciate the time you put in to research this and come up here and talk today.
I appreciate that. What was interesting to me in looking at the other counties is there's counties have different numbers of elected officials. And what I saw from Sacramento, which was fascinating, is they've got a DA and a sheriff and only one other elected official. So it's easy for them to set those salaries, and they do that. But in light of the impact, which most people when they run for office, honestly, I don't know how you all managed it or paid attention, most of the people I know never even look at what the salary is. They make the decision, I think this is the right thing to do, I'm going to run. And then you find out after the fact, well, there's a real consequence, right, financially, not just at retirement, because I agree with you, the spiking is, some of that was outrageous, right? But the difference really is here, it happens every single year because so much vacation is accrued and sick leave, which cannot be taken and is converted, and you have a right to, if you don't take it, you should be able to cash that in, absolutely. But that's not something the electeds have the ability to do. So you've, at the department head level, appointed and elected people making the same amount of money. They aren't making the same amount of money. So that's what I wanted to make sure that was very, very clear. And I'd ask you to really take a look at that for the benefit of your electeds, because You want good quality people to run for these positions, like Donna Linder here, because they don't work 40-hour weeks, right? They put in incredible time, then have to run for re-election every 4 years, which you do, and it's a tough process, and they should not be making less money.
For sure.
Thank you.
So Transparent California website gives you all public employee salaries as well as retirements, county by county, school districts, special districts, everything. It's something that I peruse very, very often, for sure. All right. E1, so now we had all comments. So now we have to make a public statement on E1.
Yes. Before adoption of the consent calendar, Government Code Section 54953, Subdivision C3 requires me to report that approval of Agenda Item E1 will approve setting the annual salary of Chief Executive Officer Jody Hayes at an annual salary of $312,707 plus department head benefits, $2,500 for out-of-pocket business-related expenses, and a county contribution of up to 5% of base salary to the deferred compensation plan.
So lastly, I want to explain a little bit about the two most difficult people to set salary bands are the person to my right and my left, because when we do 8 county average on that, it's a little different than pretty much the employees. There's a pace just to go up, right? And we give raises 2% or 3% a year, and that pace works across all the employees except for these two right here. And because of the salary band, when you do an average, the 8 Valley County CEOs, it really has to do with the seniority of the folks, and the same with county councils. So Jim Brown and this is going there. So the bands go up and down. And when you have an employee, you can't say, all right, we're going to give you a $20,000 cut this year, and then we're going to give you $20,000 next year. It doesn't work. And so we're very cognizant of that, and we're all sensitive to that, and we think this is a fair contract. I know this was a discussion we've had, so very proud of the contract we have. Any other questions, comments? All right.
Mr. Chairman, I do just want to clarify, the contract is on a 2-year.
Yes, it is a 2-year contract.
Thank you.
All right. I'll entertain a motion for the consent calendar.
Motion to approve all consent items.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Okay, we have a couple of public hearings today. The first public hearing is item 5-1, public hearing to consider adjustments to the Stanislaus County franchise maximum base rates for solid waste collection services. And Rob, so our new environmental resources director, Mr. Koslivy, he shows up and he has to deal with water and raising garbage rates. A super great time to become a department head. But we appreciate the way you've taken these items on.
Well, thank you. Well, good morning, Chairman Chiesa, Honorable Board, CEO Hayes, County Council Bose, and the public. Once again, Rob Kosleby with Department of Environmental Resources. Before you today is an item for your board to consider regarding the adjustments to the Stanislaus County franchise base rates for solid waste collection services. I'd like to introduce our DER team. We have Mandeep Dillon, Assistant Director, in the audience. We have Will Richards, who is our solid waste manager. And we have Fidelis Gines, who is our staff service coordinator. We also have representatives from F&H Consulting in the audience, as well as a few of our waste haulers. So without further ado, Will.
Good morning, Chairman Chiesa, members of the board, CEO Hayes, and County Council Bose. As Rob mentioned, my name is Will Richards, and I serve as the solid waste manager for the Department of Environmental Resources. To my left is Fidelis Gines, who is our staff services coordinator, who is responsible for our annual rate adjustment process. We'll be presenting to you the proposed rate adjustments to solid waste collection services for the county for the remainder of fiscal year 21-22 to establish a compliant service with Senate Bill 1383. The unincorporated area of the county is divided into 4 service areas. Each service area has a mixture of residential, commercial, and drop box customers who are served by one of 3 franchise haulers. Our franchise haulers receive exclusive rights to the residential and commercial accounts in their respective areas for a franchise fee. The county retains the ability to regulate the haulers and set the maximum rates that can be charged with board approval. The board also sets the maximum haul rates for the drop box customers. In 2008, the county adopted a new rate adjustment process. A base rate for garbage collection is set every 5 years based on the actual costs of the franchise haulers. For the next 4 years, the rate is adjusted by a series of consumer and price indices. The last base rate was established in July 2018, and the most recent index-based adjustment was effective July 1st, 2021. The county's rate adjustment process allows for interim adjustments due to change in law and regulations. The presentation today represents one of these interim adjustments. In order to ensure an accurate and fair rate adjustment, the department contracted with Hilton Farncop and Hobson, or HF&H, to perform a detailed rate analysis pertaining to the new SB 1383 programs. Some background on SB 1383, for those who aren't aware. SB 1383 was signed into law in 2016 by Governor Jerry Brown, and the regulations represent the most significant waste reduction mandate to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the last 30 years. Unfortunately, the regulations do not come with any funding to the local jurisdictions to offset implementation costs, which leave the burden of the cost increase on the ratepayers. The purpose of the regulations is to reduce landfill methane emissions through recycling and food recovery. The state goal is to reduce organic waste being landfilled by 50% in 2020 and 75% by 2025, while also increasing the recovery of edible food by 20%. The regulations require that the county implement a compliant garbage service for its residents. While the regulations do allow for a low population waiver for census tracts that contain less than 75 people per square mile, the staff have applied for waivers for all 9 eligible census tracts in the county and is currently awaiting approval from Cow Recycle. Approximately 67% of the site addresses in the unincorporated area will be affected by the regulations and not eligible for the low population waiver. Some of the county's properties that were previously considered non-mandatory for service will be forced to comply with the new regulations. On the left here is the county's 4 franchise areas, which we normally see during our rate process. But on the right is a new map, and that's the census tracts that will be affected. The areas in green are those that are eligible for low population waivers, and the areas in red are the areas that are not eligible for a waiver. So our current collection service, the base residential service consists of a 96-gallon cart for commingled refuse and an option of a 5-gallon bucket for recycling. If the low population waivers are approved, residents and businesses in the exempt census tracts will not see a rate adjustment at this time. However, they will no longer have the option to recycle using the bucket. Shown here is our current collection service, the basic collection service. The cart may be green or black depending on the hauler. The customers who are affected by the new regulations will see large adjustments in their monthly garbage rates. The adjustments will vary by area due to collection method, route inefficiencies, and other inefficiencies caused by the new regulations. Customers who are subscribed to Jilton and Bertolotti will begin their service on January 1st, 2022, and customers who are subscribed to Turlock Scavenger will begin their service and rate adjustment on March 1st, 2022. Carts have already started to be delivered by the franchise haulers and come with additional labeling and information for the customers. I lost my page here. Okay, all customers who are served by Bertolotti and Turlock Scavenger will transition to a 3-cart source-separated collection service. This means that the residents will have a green cart for organic materials, a blue cart for non-organic recyclables, and a black cart for their remaining waste. The blue cart will be picked up every other week in efforts to reduce the overall rate increase to the customers. Commercial customers will receive 2 additional 96-gallon carts. They will have a green cart to use for organic material and a blue cart for non-organic recyclables, and the commercial bin for the remaining waste. The blue cart will also be picked up every other week to help reduce the rate increase. This here is the picture of what Bertolotti and Turlock's residents will now see with 3 96-gallon carts. And this is what the basic commercial service looks like with the 2-yard bin and 2 96-gallon carts as well. Affected customers who are served by Jilton will be transitioned to a 2-cart collection service. They'll receive one green cart for organic material and 1 black cart to mix non-organic recyclables and other remaining waste. The black cart will go through additional processing at Jilton's facility to meet the diversion requirements of SB 1383. All affected commercial customers will continue to keep their existing bin service. The entire bin will be processed at Jilton's facility to meet the diversion requirements.
Will, just real quick, sorry to
Yes.
interrupt your thought there. Can you just make sure you explain really quick why Jilton's able to do that? Because they will have the separator at their facility, is that right?
Yeah, so Jilton approached us back in May, and we brought this back to the board, I believe, in August for approval, that they wanted to implement what's called a high diversion processing facility at their transfer station, which allows a commingled bin or cart to get passed over a series of filters, essentially, to separate out the organic waste, the recyclables, and then the remaining waste.
And that saves them an extra truck trip, basically, right?
Yeah, Jilton has split cart or split trucks, which allows them to collect all of their route with a single pass, rather than putting 2 or 3 trucks on the road.
Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure everybody understood that. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. Now see if you can pick back up where you left off.
No problem. Okay, so this is the residential collection service that Jilton will now be using. It's very similar to what we see currently in Modesto and some of the other cities that currently use Jilton. And then the commercial customers aren't changing what they have, so we didn't include that there. The majority of residential customers served by Bertolotti will see a $15.99 per month increase. Jilton customers will see a $12.98 per month increase. Turlock Scavenger customers in Area 3 will see a $25.47 per month increase, and Turlock Scavenger customers in Area 4 will see a $29.25 per month increase. This slide shows the current basic monthly rate for areas 1, 3, and 4 compared to the new rate for the 3-cart service in these areas. This slide shows the current basic monthly rate for Area 2 for residential service compared to the new 2-cart collection service that will be implemented. The commercial customers who currently have the most common 2 cubic yard bin service by Bertolotti will see a $34.06 per month increase. Jilton customers will see a $29.34 per month increase. Turlock Scavenger customers in Area 3 will see a $26.47 per month increase. Or, sorry, 25. I mistyped on my letter. And Turlock Scavenger customers in Area 4 will see a $29.25 per month increase. And this slide shows the current basic commercial monthly rate for areas 1, 3, and 4 compared to the new rate for the 3-cart services in those areas. And this slide shows the basic commercial monthly rate for Area 2 compared to the new rate to have that 2-yard bin processed at the facility. The department has visited all of our county municipal advisory councils during the last year to inform them of the upcoming changes to their garbage service and have shared out informational flyers after the meetings. The department has also mailed out an informative flyer in English and Spanish to all affected residential and commercial property owners. Jilton and Bertolotti have provided an additional mailer to their customers, and Turlock Scavenger will be providing a mailer early in the new year with information for their customers. Each of the carts that have been and will be delivered are labeled to inform customers what items can be placed in what cart. The department continues to seek out additional opportunities for outreach with other local jurisdictions through various media outlets. There is also additional information provided at stanislausrecycles.org explaining what the regulations are and what it means to waste generators. The department understands that the rate adjustment is steep and that some customers may not be able to afford or need the service. One option that the county has found is we can provide a shared service with a nearby neighbor to share the costs and the added capacity of the additional carts. And we are continually seeking out additional options that may provide financial relief for those who may need it. And a staff recommendation is to conduct a public hearing to consider the adjustments to the Stanislaus County franchise maximum rates for solid waste collection services in order to implement new services to comply with Senate Bill 1383 and approve the recommended franchise maximum rates for refuse collection services in franchise areas 1, 2, 3, and 4. And happy to take any questions from you.
Any questions for Will?
Well, so you referred to, well, first of all, thank you for the presentation. It's never easy to raise any rates, especially in today's time when we're dealing with so many other challenging factors. But I just want to clarify that this is something that was brought upon the state. Obviously, you referenced SB bill that was passed through the state legislature.
Yeah, the state, like I said, I think in 2016, it was signed by Governor Brown, comes completely unfunded, but it is a mandate, and the county would be subject to $10,000 per day fines if we did not implement.
And weren't some of our local waste and garbage management providers already have mechanisms in place where they could separate some of the stuff that wouldn't make it necessary for, the different bins?
So the regulations force a higher standard of what's considered the high diversion processing facility that Jilton's putting in to put in some of that additional stuff. And it requires a 75% diversion rate, and that's pretty tall order to accomplish. So based on what we had with our traditional one-cart collection service, the haulers, we didn't have to separate it before. And so there's cities that they service that had source separated. 3-cart service isn't new. City of Turlock has it. Patterson has it. And obviously when that stuff is already separated, it goes to the appropriate place. But since we've been existing on 1 cart, and that's a significant amount of waste coming through, that they were not prepared to have the additional sorting done on site.
It just seems very frustrating that the state's gone through this one-size-fits-all mechanism. Is there any opportunity for conversation if Jilton or our other companies are able to adhere to that 75% of having a discussion of bringing the rates down, or is that a possibility, or is it?
Yeah, we're certainly going to keep a pulse on it. The hardest part about this is we're dealing with so much unknown. And as we get our bearings and we see how things are working, there's opportunities for the haulers to potentially work with Jilton directly if they want to use their facility, or if they wanted to install some of that equipment at their own and become in the high diversion processing facility at their transfer station. That would also be an option.
Well, if you can keep us updated on what developments you see in that, because if there's an opportunity to lower these rates, I want to make sure that we're on top of it and expeditious and having those conversations.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I think the dirty little secret is the state gives us a year to educate people, and then there's an expectation that we're going to become police officers and go out and look through people's garbage, which is, again, unfunded mandate and pretty intrusive. And hopefully this system works so that people get accustomed to it and that doesn't occur. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I just share the same concerns as my colleague Supervisor Graywall, and also our chairman as well. Just the unfunded mandates and these burdens put down upon us on the state. It'd be nice for them to step up to the plate if they wanted, if they want us to comply and they want us to do this. If they think it's such a great policy, they should come up with ways to better fund it. But I would also encourage you, just like my colleague did, if there are other ways to bring down those costs eventually, if there's other ways where we can kind of decrease the cost of living, which is through the roof, inflation's through the roof, everything's through the roof, people are really feeling it. And so it'd be nice to continue to explore that. And if there are options to lower fees without sacrificing the quality of our services, I would absolutely support in doing that. But thank you so much for all your hard work and for this presentation.
Thank you.
Supervisor Condit?
Thank you, Will, for your report. Does any of our companies have lifeline programs for some of our fixed income constituents that they may take advantage of?
Currently, we do not in the county. Those types of subsidies are generally funded by the local government agency.
Okay. Now, what was the state's surplus budget this year?
Ding, ding, ding. Thank you.
Sure would be nice if they could set something up with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Supervisor Withrow?
Thank you. Thank you guys for putting this together. I know this is no fun. In the past, at least as long as I've been here, Vito, we have this great process in place, right? We've got every 4 years, we've got a model, this formula that we use, and we look to adjust the rates based on that. And then, of course, yearly, we look at consumer price index and so it was pretty simple, based on some real logic and very fair, I think, at that point in the past. And now we come up with this, as my fellow supervisors said, these unfunded mandates, which are not just here, it's throughout everything we do. We're constantly dealing with unfunded mandates. They tell us to do something, and we have to figure out how to fund it. And in this place, it's on this situation, it's on the backs of the taxpayers here, which is unfortunate. Over the years, we've all had constituents ask us for, we need more recycling in the unincorporated areas. We're always hearing that, more recycling, let's do that. well, careful what you wish for, because here we are now with this more recycling, and now we're all going to get stuck with these additional fees. It's, substantial, from anywhere from 156 more a year to 351 in Area 4. And these are real dollars, and especially people on fixed incomes, this is not a good situation. What I really appreciate is, Will, in the presentation that you guys have done here, is these options, as we said here, the different options, the shared service, a great option for people, especially seniors who have very little garbage, and really no reason to have these two, or three in some situations, bins out there. So we need to really be able to make sure we're ramped up to help people figure out how to do that. Basically cut these increases in half for those people would be great. Maybe even more if there's multiple individuals on a cul-de-sac or on a street that would work for. That's great. And then, like we talked about, the other possibilities, other ways we're going to look at, as Buck said, that maybe there's other things we can do to just help people get through this that might get stuck with these fees. So no fault of our own is the common theme here. This is one of these things that get thrown on us, and everybody has to deal with them. We've all received emails, and everybody's upset about this. But we're going to do everything we can to try to help smooth this and make it easier for people to handle. So I appreciate you guys doing this. I know we've done all we can to come up with the rates that are fair. Our haulers need to still be able to make a living and make a profit at their business, or they won't haul anymore. And so that's important also. And so I know we've come up with numbers that get us to that point. But then we're going to do all we can to help the constituents. So thank you guys for putting this together. And unfortunately, we're in this spot.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other comments, it is a public hearing. I'd open the public hearing. Anyone want to come and speak on this item? Yeah, please. Come on up. And you don't have to raise your hand. You just come on up. Look around. Thank you. That's a teacher. That is awesome.
Can I keep my mask on?
You can.
Thank you. My name's Diane Yonan-Boxel. I'll be very, very brief. In regards to what was just discussed, in regards to the raising specific to franchise Area 4, we don't live in a cul-de-sac. We live on 3 to 9 acre parcels. Grass cuttings do not go in a bin. They go in the field. They go in the perimeter of our property. Leaves do the same thing. I have no need for what you're proposing or what you say the state has pushed upon you, which in turn is pushed upon us. We take all recyclables to Turlock Scavenger, yes, because we get paid to do so, right? That's a little payback. We don't even fill up the large bin with the garbage that we produce. There's 3 of us. I know that you can't not do what you're saying you have to do, so I understand that. I have 2 questions. 75 people in a 1 square mile was the standard given to incorporating, like us, into this trash removal. Was that by the state? Was that by the provider? Was that by you? Who came up with that?
Will?
Yeah, so the state regulations, well, we'll say historically our non-mandatory area and our mandatory area was based on the county zoning policy. And so if you're in an agriculturally zoned parcel, you didn't necessarily have to subscribe to service. The state regulations come down and uses the federal census to determine what census tracts are what. So there's parcels of land, that are, my parents, for example, live on 14 acres in Wood Colony, and they're getting roped into this and included into this because they're included with some of the residential neighborhoods, and those tracts are drawn by the federal government, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you very much. And because I'm nervous, I've forgotten the second question. So I apologize. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. And I strongly encourage you to get with your neighbors and look for a sharing, because I think that's the best avenue out to lower your rates, especially if you don't have any recyclables. You go together with 2 or 3 neighbors and try and get one recycle bin where you're only paying a fifth or a seventh of the bill every month. But someone's got to take the leadership, and someone's got to pay that bill still, and that's the difficulty in that. But we'll continue to look. Anyone else?
Okay, for the record, my name is Stephen Morrow. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and other members of the board. This has been a contentious issue, and when we've heard the term unfunded mandate, usually it falls on elected boards like you, and those of us in the public really don't think about it because it's your guys' headache. But it affects anything you guys have to do affects our tax bills. So in the end, we wind up paying for it anyway. This one's more direct. This is going to hit us all on our monthly bills. I know there was a lot of work done to put together the proposed rates, and I do not question the need for some adjustment on the rates because the costs are there, the state stuck it with us, and so we have to cover the costs. But I wrote up an alternate proposal, which I'll hand over to the clerk. It doesn't change the maximum increase as in the ordinance that you folks are proposing. But what it does do is goes to more of a phase-in. Like on the initial month that you want to put the increase in, instead of hitting everybody with the entire rate increase on top, it would hit them with about half of it. And then 3 or 4 months later, hit them with the second half of the rate. Because there are people where an extra $16 a month or $25 a month doesn't mean anything, but there's a lot of families in here where that's going to hurt and hurt bad, and it gives them a chance to update. Now, I know that would provide an impact to the haulers. I'm not privy to their balance sheets, income statements, or statement of changes in financial position. So I know that would hurt them a little bit in their adjustment. But it also might buy them just a little bit of goodwill with the customer base if they could work with the county to maybe slow down the increase period instead of hitting everybody all at once. It might provide some goodwill, and goodwill has been in short supply in our society for much of the last 2 years. Anyway, it's another idea. I learned in government class we all have a right to complain, but if you don't like what's being done, you have to be prepared to offer an alternative, and I respectfully offer that. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board.
Thank you very much. So Stephen's been coming enough now that he's come to the realization that you come with a solution. It always works better, right? Thank you, Stephen.
Oh, someone did leave their mask up here.
Yes, someone, but we're not sure who it was. Yeah, you're right. It was Miss Countryman. Okay, so anyone else? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the board. Thoughts, action? Right before you do that, I just want to add one more thing, because you said it, but the way we adjusted rates before, rates went up 30 cents on a route. They went down a couple of times, not a lot of times, but when diesel prices went up and went down, literally the adjustments were such that it really was a non-factor. And this board has taken an approach, better to raise 30 cents every year, 40 cents on your route than to do it $5 because it's such a stunning amount. And I think it's worked, and that's why it's a very hard pill for us to swallow when you sit and look at these rates out in district or in the 3rd and 4th in the 20s. It's a very difficult thing. We will continue to pursue the state for funding on this. I think everyone's coming up against this, so now it'll rise. Before it was something that was out there that we didn't like, but now it's real. So we'll be continuing to talk to the state about possibly funding some of this mandate, at least on a lifeline type situation. So, all right, back to the board.
Okay, so I'm gonna do it Jim DiMartini. I'm gonna hold my nose and make a motion to approve this staff recommendation.
Just before the motion, I was going to ask permission from Mr. Morrow if I could take a picture of the document, since there wasn't additional copies, to further study. I'll second that motion begrudgingly.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, board members.
Okay, we have a second public hearing. Public hearing to consider the Planning Commission's recommendation of approval of general plan amendment, rezone, investing tentative parcel map application, PLN 2020-0102, M&B Family Development. And I will just leave it at that because it's long, and I will turn it over to Angela.
Good morning, Chairman Chiesa, members of the board, Mr. Hayes and Mr. Bose. I'm Angela Freitas, the county's planning director. And with me this morning to present the item is Jeremy Ballard. So we will just get that up and running. And
1 second. I'm having a little bit of an issue here. Thank you. Good morning, Chair Chiesa, board members, CEO Hayes, County Council Bose, Jeremy Ballard, Associate Planner, and then I'm with the Stanislaus County Planning Community Development Department, and I'm here to present General Plan Amendment, Rezone, and Parcel Map Application Number PLN 2020-0102 MMB Family Development. So this is a request to amend the General Plan and Zoning designation of a 0.35 acre portion of a 2.82 acre parcel from agriculture and general agriculture A240 to plan development, and then to create a 0.35 acre parcel and a 2.47 acre remainder. This is to legalize an unpermitted parking lot. The project site is located at 5045 McHenry Avenue on the northwest corner of the McHenry Avenue, also known as State Route 108, and Kiernan Avenue, also known as State Route 219 intersection. This is in the Modesto area. The site is outside the LAFCO adopted sphere of influence of the city of Modesto, but is within their general plan study area. The site currently has a general plan designation of agriculture and is currently zoned A240, general agriculture. The site is surrounded by light industrial development to the west of the project site. A legally non-conforming bar and agriculturally zoned parcels are to the north. State Route 108, an RV storage facility, and orchard are to the east. And then an apartment complex, restaurant, card room, and State Route 219 are to the south. The city limits for Modesto is approximately 0.85 miles south of the project site. As stated previously, a portion of the site has been previously developed with an unpermitted parking lot. The parking lot was developed without land use or grading permits with the intent of providing additional parking spaces for the existing mixed-use development on the adjoining parcel to the south. Both parcels are under common ownership. The parking lot is used in conjunction with the adjacent parcel lot. It serves both residential and commercial uses. Just as a note, although it does serve those uses on the adjacent parcel to the south, that parcel to the south is not included in this project. The adjacent parcel to the south, as I was saying, which was already developed with an apartment complex, a banquet room, and restaurant, was rezoned to Plan Development 210 by the Board of Supervisors in 1994. This was to allow the allowable uses to be consistent with H1 commercial zoning district uses, as well as a card room. The card room did not develop within the approved time frame. Subsequently, a use permit was approved by the Planning Commission in 2011, allowing for the establishment of a card room within the existing 7,278 square foot building, replacing the previous banquet room. The card room was permitted to operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with up to 10 tables and a maximum of 14 employees. To operate all 10 tables in conjunction with the existing apartment complex and restaurant that was on site, the property is required to provide a total of 84 off-street parking spaces. Of the 84 parking spaces, 42 were to be allotted for the apartment complex, 13 for the restaurant, and the remaining 29 spaces to the card room. This was assuming that there was going to be 10 seats at each table for the card room. While approved for 10 tables, the Oasis card room has only operated utilizing 8 tables since the 2011 approval. In 2018, the operator of the card room inquired about expanding to the approved 10 tables, and that during a site visit, staff had observed that the adjoining property, the 0.35 acre portion, had been developed with 29 paved parking stall parking lot without obtaining any of the required land use permits. Once this was discovered, the property owner was informed of the unpermitted parking lot and that it required a general plan amendment and rezone.
as the existing or expanded parking lot had no existing land use entitlements other than what was permitted in the A2 General Agricultural Zoning District. As a note, a staff approval permit for the expansion and reorganization of the on-site parking and landscaping for the card room was submitted in October of 2020 and has been recently issued. So for the project today, this is to permit the 29 paved parking spaces on the parking lot. This will be accompanied by a storm drain basin to collect all stormwater runoff. A reciprocal access easement will be required between the Oasis card room parcel and the proposed parcel 1. The parking lot will be not limited on the hours of use as the existing card room is open 24 hours a day. Additionally, the project proposes to develop road frontage improvements, including curb, gutter, and sidewalks, 2 existing light poles 25 feet in height, and there will be landscaping along the parking lot frontage as well. No new well or septic systems are proposed for on-site use. However, the project does propose to connect to the existing public water system on the adjoining parcel to the south via a reciprocal utility easement for the sole purpose of watering the landscaping. The project also includes a request to separate the parking lot out from the larger parcel, and this would include the storm drain basin. This would be done by a vesting tentative parcel map, creating a 0.35 acre parcel, parcel 1, which is outlined in red, and a 2.47 acre remainder parcel. There will be no change in the general plan and zoning designation of the agriculture, zoning designations of agriculture for the proposed 2.47 acre remainder parcel. The use of the property, which has already been developed with 3 single-family dwellings and residential accessory structures, will remain unchanged. Because the parking lot has already been developed, the proposed project will be subject to development standards that require the parking lot to be brought into compliance prior to the recording of the vesting tentative parcel map or within 6 months of project of approval, whichever would come first. This would apply to the obtaining a grading permit and an approval installation of landscaping and all other site improvements. The proposed landscaping plan will consist of a combination of trees, shrubs, and ground cover, and this will be planted along the eastern road frontage as well as the northern and western property lines. As discussed in the board report, the project site is located in an area that has been incrementally transitioning from agricultural uses to light industrial and limited commercial uses through a series of general plan amendments and rezones over the last 2 decades. This area is referred to as the North McHenry Planned Development Corridor and is generally bound by on the south by Kiernan Avenue, the west by the Union Pacific Rail Line, on the north by the Modesto Irrigation District Main Canal and St. Francis Avenue, and on the east by McHenry Avenue. Further development within this North McHenry Planned Development Corridor area would require adoption of a specific plan in order to comprehensively address circulation and utility needs of the area. Development of the 0.35 acres into a parking lot would have been subject to the specific plan requirement. However, being that the use is now existing, is not creating a need for any new independent circulation or utilities. At this point, no further development of the 0.35 acre project site could then occur without additional land use entitlements, which would then trigger the specific plan requirements. As I stated before, the proposed 2.47 acre remainder will remain subject to the A2 zoning ordinance. So general plan consistency was evaluated when processing this discretionary project. So in order to approve the amendment of the general plan land use designation from agriculture to planned development, the agricultural elements conversion criteria must be met, including finding that the proposed project will not contribute to or encourage further conversion of larger agricultural lands to non-agricultural uses and will not be growth inducing due to the physical features of the project site. So as discussed in the general plan consistency section of attachment 1 of the Planning Commission staff report, staff believes that all necessary conversion criteria findings can be made and that the conversion of the 0.35 acre parcel for a parking lot use accessory to an existing use will not contribute to or encourage further conversion of any larger agricultural parcels in the surrounding area. And like I just said, any future proposal for development of any of these parcels of the project site will require the development of a specific plan for that greater North McHenry Planned Development Corridor. As for the county's sphere of influence policy, the project site, like I said, was within a mile of the city of Modesto's sphere of influence and within their general plan study area, which in accordance with the county's general plan policy, the project was referred to the city for review and comment. In this circumstance, the county is required to consider applying city development standards. However, the county reserves the right for final discretionary action. Additionally, the proposed project is considered a part of the northern gateway into the city of Modesto. Thus, the general plan encourages both the city and county to jointly cooperate in establishing land use and development standards for these areas. The city responded to the project referral saying they have no objection to the project itself and have requested that development standards related to stormwater, landscaping, meet city standards. The development standards have been added to the project to ensure that the installation of these improvements these standards are met. So lastly, although the project site is within 150 feet of agriculturally zoned parcels to the north, south, a parking lot is a permitted use under the county's agricultural buffer policy. Thus, the project is in compliance. Additionally, the perimeter of the parking lot will be fenced and landscaped around the perimeter that adjoins ag zone parcels. So for the zoning approval, to approve a rezone, the board must find that the project is consistent with the general plan. If the general plan amendment is approved, the proposed plan development zoning designation of the 0.35 acre parcel will also then be consistent with the proposed plan development designation. So to pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, the proposed project was circulated to interested parties and responsible agencies for review and comment. Based on the comments received, a negative declaration has been prepared for this project with typical development standards being applied to the project, which can be found in attachment 1 of the board report. The Planning Commission considered this item at a public hearing on November 18th, 2021. During the public hearing, no one spoke in opposition of the project, and Rick Mummert, the applicant's representative, spoke in favor of the project. Ultimately, on a vote of 5-0, the Planning Commission recommended the Board of Supervisors approve this project. So to conclude my presentation, the Planning Commission has recommended approval of the project. If the board chooses to approve this project as well, findings for approval are outlined in staff recommendations 1 through 7 of the board report, including findings regarding the environmental review, general plan amendment, rezone, subdivision, road improvements, agricultural buffer project approval, and adoption of an ordinance. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Jeremy? Seeing none, I'll open up the public hearing. Any interested parties?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, fellow supervisors, Rick Mummert, Benchmark Engineering, 915 17th Street, Modesto. First, want to thank planning staff for the long effort and that it took us to get here this morning. Worked with staff very diligently because we had the Oasis site to deal with, and we also had the Bruno family site to the north. One of the things that came out of it for sure was that we found out that the parking lot was constructed within per city or county standards, so that was a good thing. We're finishing up the project now by installing the basin, the landscaping, and the curb gutter sidewalk on McHenry. So we'll finish it off to bring it into compliance. Other than that, be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Have any questions? No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the board for comments, thoughts.
The main thing is that this doesn't affect Nino's, a bar that I attend regularly in the last 20 months.
No, sir.
Just want to make sure. No, I don't go there.
Just be careful pulling out. Now there'll be curb gutters.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. I'll go right over the sidewalk as I pull up.
So I want to thank the Bruno family. I know they came forward with the problem, and planning staff working together for a common solution. Again, I know that area will all be developed, I know, within that corridor, but this is it's not a workaround. But it's something we can do within our means. So appreciate it. So with that, I'll look forward for a motion.
Make the motion to approve.
I'll second that.
So a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries again unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On to item 6, discussion item, approval of a memorandum of understanding between the Health Services Agency and Stanislaus County Office of Education for the safe schedule safe schools of all programs. I need my glasses now. Safe schools and all program retroactively to the period May 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. Mary Ann Lilly will be presenting.
Good morning. I am Mary Ann Lilly Tungowski, the Managing Director of the Health Services Agency, and with me this morning I'm very pleased to have Christine Cisco, Assistant Superintendent for the Stanislaus County Office of Education. We are here today to talk about this Safe Schools for All project, and we're going to both share some information. Okay, I'm going to concentrate a little bit on the grant and the funding and the county and public health's role with this. And Christine is really the expert on the program itself. So Christine will really get into the meat of this. So the Safe Schools for All program is, and the funding for this was made available through State Assembly Bill 86 earlier this calendar year. And the funding is such that the state had an allocation for every county, and there was an allocation that went to the county Office of Education, and the same amount went to the local health jurisdiction. And there was a scope. It wasn't a defined. There was discretion in the scope. You see, what we have here: enhanced public health education engagement, mitigation strategies in schools and districts. When looking at from the public health standpoint, when we look at what we were doing, the traditional communicable disease mitigation activities, vaccination, the work that we were doing with the schools. You know, we have been fortunate to have other funding come to help support that. And also through all the mitigation, through all this pandemic, we've worked closely with the Office of Education as a strong school partner. And so when this funding came, of course, it's Safe Schools for All. We were collaborating and working with SCO, and that's really where our leadership teams identified that a gap really is about the mental health and well-being of children. And given that I mentioned the other funding, because Health Services Agency has the funding it needs to do other. So this looked like this was a really good opportunity to be able to collaborate and leverage the two pots for one project. We're also not the experts in the mental health and well-being of children in public health. And so it seemed to make sense that we would be collaborating on something and not developing something ourselves, separate and apart. What you're gonna hear about too is that what we came to understand is that there was a promising program. It was a very small pilot prior to this funding, because certainly the mental health and well-being of children was an issue before the pandemic. It's been made worse for a lot of different impacts of the pandemic, but saw that there was a program that was already beginning, it was already initiated, but had no scale, and that this was really an opportunity to leverage. And I want to say too, an opportunity as I understand it. An opportunity that while this funding has come about because of COVID, it's also something that can help support a sustainable, address a need in a sustainable way. So to me, that's a real positive as well. Before I turn it to Christine, though, I do want to say that just to be upfront about it. Technically, we're here asking for your permission to enter into a memorandum of understanding. And you're going to hear a lot about a program that sounds like it's already going. We should have been here earlier. That's on Health Services Agency, and it was, some of this is about bringing on we scaled up and we missed some steps in terms of some of the training on policy and the contracting. So we should have been here earlier. We've not executed an MOU yet. We're here to ask for permission to do that. We've not provided funding to SCO yet, but I just wanted to be upfront about that.
Have you guys been busy?
With a few things. So with that, I'm gonna turn it to the expert here, and give me the nod, and I'll be moving the slides for you. Okay?
Awesome. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Christine Cisco. Thank you for having me and giving me an opportunity to introduce you to something that I'm extremely passionate about. I'm an educator, 31 years in the career, and 21 of those were in the classroom. So this really speaks close to my heart, and it speaks close to supporting our students. So this is our journey, and this is what we've been working with. Before the pandemic even, we've known that supports of students come into the schools with multiple hats. We aren't just teachers, we aren't just administrators. We are nurses, we are friends, we are the support that our students need, whatever that might be. So with the onset of the pandemic, we've been gathering data and working in a public-private partnership with CED Health in Turlock because of some of the stats I'm going to be sharing with you today. 7 out of 10 of our teens are struggling with mental health. This program that we are implementing really focuses on 7th through 12th grade students, and we are also going to be focusing on employees and eventually developing a K-6 version of this so that we can actually reach all students. Actually, I should say TK6. We know that self-harm in insurance claims has gone up dramatically, and that the mental health effects of this pandemic are going to last a decade. This isn't going to go away anytime soon. We were already in a hole, and then our pandemic hit, and our hole got deeper. Go ahead. So we also know that our teachers suffer from physical symptoms of stress due to the pandemic. They have been amazing. I swear every teacher has become Gumby during this pandemic and has really done their best for their students. Burnout rates in teaching are already high, but they've now been exacerbated. And I'll tell you right now that retirement and flee rate, teaching is not the most attractive profession at the moment because it is so stressful. And then we have our parents and our guardians of these students. And for them, these depression rates have tripled. So our students not only are having support providers at school who are stressed and burned out, their primary care system at home is on that same path. 40% of our adults are experiencing problems with mental health issues or substance abuse. And again, the pandemic has been no friend to this. So our schools are doing a lot already for mental health. This triangle that you'll see here is called the MTSS, or Multi-Tiered System of Support triangle. And at the bottom you'll see that green tier, which is for universal supports. This system and this program that we're putting in place is a Tier 1 universal support. It is for every 7th through 12th grade student, and it is for all employees as well. From there, there's that Tier 2, which is a little more targeted supports. This system allows us to do what I call triage, in a sense, for mental health and well-being, and be able to then put our students and our employees into a system where they can get help at a higher tier or a more intensive rate, which is then Tier 3. So our schools are already doing a lot with this triangle. We've got committees on mental health and well-being. We have campaigns going on. We have our alphabet soup, which is never fun, so that multi-tiered system of support, positive behavior intervention supports, response to intervention supports, all of these things. But the question we're left with is what we're doing working? We can measure academics. We can't measure that mental health and well-being. So we needed to find a way to measure our outcomes. So what we've done is partnered with CED Health. CED Health has a paradigm and a application. It's web-based and app-based as well. And without going into like the depth of CED Health, which I would love to do anytime, anybody wants to listen, I'll give you my phone number, you can give me a call. But we focus on the world, body, mind, and spirit. And what's at the core of all of this is that we look at students and help them assess what is right with them. We don't ask them the question, what's wrong with you? We find out what's right with you. Who are you? What are your core values and what do you want to do to live your best life? Then we have them look at, what are you doing? Are you living through those core values? If not, let's talk about that. Let's teach that. Because that's the way to then center your world, body, mind, and spirit. And then how's it working out for you? If we need to, let's make a plan. Let's take some steps to move you forward. So truly starting with that what's right with you, there is an assessment that employees and students take. It is completely private, and I'll hit that in just a minute. But it helps them identify their 4 core values out of 80 possibilities. And there's something like 3 million different combinations of this. And typically, no one has the exact same core values as anybody else. I can guarantee you everybody in this room would be different. So their health approach and their paradigm really is getting students to that core of who am I, what's right with me, and how can I carry that out in my everyday life. So when CAD Health spoke with Scott Kuykendall at SCO, it was primarily an employee-based program. And we started there. But then Scott said, you know what, we need this for kids. And he was really the catalyst into bringing in a co-development of taking this program from something that was for private industry into education. And my team in our instructional support services, who are all certificated teachers, have had a heavy hand in helping develop this for the schools. SCO wanted to make sure that we had safety and security, and so data is absolutely confidential. It doesn't get sold to anybody. It is not a third-party dealer. There are no ads. It meets all accessibility standards, but more importantly, it is HIPAA, COPA, and FERPA compliant. And everybody knows HIPAA and FERPA, but COPA is the Children's Online Privacy and Protection Act. So they are compliant with all 3 of those agencies when it comes to privacy for the students and the staff who use this program. So I have some examples for you. This is actually our true staff data. And this is what was kind of tracked. We started this program in September of 2019 with our employees. And what we do is we check in every day, if we want to, this is completely voluntary, on our energy, direction, belonging, and joy. And so these are our well-being scores over time. You'll notice that trend line is going down and to the right, and that's something that CEDIA looked at us and said, whoops, we never want to see that. That's you want data going up, not down. But what this did show us was that in January of 2020, when COVID awareness was starting to really grow, and then we hit February 20, when COVID's here, it's real, and then we sheltered in place in March, our well-being scores as a staff were still above what we would call a good average of about 75%. Shelter in place hit, we took a big dip. And then Zoom was a lifestyle, April of 2020, we were hit a little bit harder. But what we were able to do with this program is not just see the way the data went, but dig into it and found out the why behind it. Thank you. So with all of the things that CED measures, you can see that understandably, the emotions of our staff over that period of time went down 17%. But the part that really amazed us was watching that our core value connections, connecting to other people, spiritual connections, positive thoughts, and exercise. Exercise went way up for everybody during the pandemic. Investing in their ecosystem or their homes or their properties all went up. And even more importantly to us as an organization, that the meaning and purpose of our employees at work went up. Is it a difficult time? Absolutely. But we had a way of tracking and seeing the positive connections that were happening, not just the negative. So, during that whole time, and continuing on, because we're still working with the program, there are different types of supports in place. They send us electronic supports, everything from a small quick read to It could be a paragraph to some stories and things that are a little bit longer. Professional development has been created by my team at the County Office of Education, and we actually train employees and teachers on the program, as well as how to support through staff meetings, how to support through coaching conversations, so that this is becoming a true fabric to everything we do, rather than something placed on top of our plate that's one more thing. It's truly starting to inform and guide our culture and our climate, and it's doing the same thing for our students. So here's the continuation of our employee well-being, and there you have that shelter in place around March of 2020. And as the months have gone on, our data has continued to rebound. And at the peak of the pandemic in December of 2020, we actually went back up to an 80% well-being rate, which is far above the 75% that we have been focusing on and reaching for. What happened then, though, just after the new year in 2020, is there was and I'm going to be a little emotional, I apologize. There was a double suicide in Oakdale, and one of those students was one of ours from our programs. And so we knew that we needed to accelerate this and get this into our students' hands. So we worked faster and harder with our partners to start building supports for students. And you'll notice that CSU Stanislaus and BHRS, Stanislaus County BHRS, are on our list of partners. Stanislaus State is doing all of our research and our reports and our publishing, so we are research and evidence-based. And we are coordinating with BHRS on aligning resources so that while we are using this program, resources can be allocated and tagged, for lack of a better word, for people to have easily accessible phone numbers, contacts, etc. And those resources are mapped to the different programs. So ours are mapped to our Stanislaus County student programs, and we can also map them for specific districts and the resources they have within those districts. So it's individualized rather than being a generic hotline kind of a thing. It's actually special to that community. So we had some early results with our students. This is actual student result from Comeback Kids, and this is where I'm going to introduce a great term to you. This is autopsy data. This is the kind of data that we get and we look backwards at, and we decide, oh my gosh, what happened here and what can we do to change it? Well, what happened here, if you see that really big dip with that big red zero with it, it's about November of 2020. This student actually put in all negative answers when they did their daily check-in. Basically, it was 4 sad faces in a row. So what we did with that when we were looking at that was, oh my goodness, if this had been real-time data, we could have walked across to that student's classroom and made a connection. That relationship, that connection, is one of the biggest factors in preventing suicide with students. Relationships. We would have had real-time data to be able to say, oh my goodness, this student needs a connection, we need help, we need to help get them more supports. Everything that we get in education right now when it comes to social emotional health, like the Healthy Kids surveys, is every 2 years. And it's that autopsy data. We are always looking backward. So we are seeking to change that. So what we did with CED Health, and we made a big push for, is we have integrated CED's check-in system with our ARIES student information system. So this is where teachers go to take attendance. And so you see the little emojis down the middle there. What we've done is we integrated so that when a teacher goes to take attendance, they can see how their students have checked in for the day. And if there is that red, you can walk over and make that personal connection right away. Or if it's all happy faces and it's green, walk over and make that personal connection and say, hey, what's going so right with you? Making sure that that first universal support is the teacher in the classroom who sees them every day and can build that relationship. And of course, there are other supports in place with the student information system, but that is the key. And me as a teacher, I will be so honest with you, that's the only place that I would go in the morning. I go to take my attendance, turn in my lunch count, and move forward with my teaching. If I had to go to another system or to another tab even to find that, it wouldn't be as easily accessible. So we really pushed hard between CD Health and ARIES to get this integration with the student information system, and we are currently working with 3 other student information systems companies to get integrated with theirs as well, so that we can serve no matter what district or what student information system they have. This kind of thing totally excited me. So that's the educator in me. So the well-being of our students, this is some data up through September of 2021. We have maintained a very high rate of well-being for our students, and we attribute a lot of that to that quick check-in system, the professional development that we've been giving the teachers and the staff, as well as the fact that we've made it part of the climate and culture for us as employees to take care of ourselves and assess our own well-being. Because we know as educators that if we don't support ourselves in some way, then we can't support our kids. So getting us to understand that fabric, that emotional well-being, and being able to move forward with it, not only is serving us well, it's serving our students well. So our check-ins for our students, the total number of students on this survey are the 940-ish. I want to say 941 is the last number I was given. But this is showing us that our check-ins are really doing very well. We have our highest, this is number of students checking in less than 50% of the time, or giving us a check-in, I should say, of a sad face, on the sad face side of the check-ins. So you can see that we have from January of 21, when things got really rough and rolling and we started with our students, that we weren't checking in as often, but we got to a point that we were understanding that as our students are checking in, 99 of those 900 students were saying they're not doing well. And that gave us data to go ahead and put in some supports. And then our numbers started going down again. But then we came back to school, and school wasn't exactly what we thought it would be in August. We were thinking we were getting back to normal. And so we had our rates going back up. We put some more things in place to make sure that our students are being supported and our rates are going back down. So this kind of data helps us see if the programs and the processes that we have in place in our programs are actually working with our students. So the next steps in our journey, we also pushed, and it's almost ready. I can taste it. I can feel it in the air. We are actually looking at a live dashboard where we can get real-time data up to the minute. We have dashboards that can tell us how our core values are correlated for students, what are the main core values of our kids, and that, of course, accelerates relationships and connections. It also can tell us up to the minute how the energy, direction, belonging, and joy are for these students. So what we're looking at doing is allowing multiple check-ins a day. So as a high school student, your teacher can say, okay, everybody, do your check-in, and a teacher can see real-time what is going on with students in their energy, direction, and belonging and joy. As an administrator, that would be super interesting data to see where those levels are for my different teachers or my different subjects or my different times of day. And I can make strategic decisions instructionally and emotionally for those students. So the development of this dashboard, it's in a beta version, but I've gotten to play with it. And I could see as a classroom teacher, too, how this would really inform what I'm teaching, how I'm teaching it, and who I'm teaching it to, most importantly. So right now, we are trying to support, with our half of our grant money, we are rolling out free of cost CED Health to 2 of our small school districts who otherwise cannot afford to participate in this. But that's where we're going. We're trying to get this so that it becomes a baseline in all of our school districts if that's where they see fit to go. We are trying to poise ourselves to be ready to support. So we know that this mental health crisis is not going to be going away. We also know that it's just good practice to have that measure for a universal support for all students for mental well-being. It's a better way to live. Instead of being reactionary, being proactive. We do need that infrastructure for prevention and early intervention, and we need that outcomes measurement. We don't have anything like this yet. This is a unique public-private collaboration. I am thrilled working with the doctors from CED Health, having their input, and them really listening to me as an educator and knowing what I do about students and how students learn has become a great collaboration, and many things have come from it, such as the dashboard and the integration with Aries. We've totally rebuilt our professional development plane many, many times. This is kind of an experiment. As we've been building this project, we've kind of already been flying the plane, and it wasn't kind of complete yet. But we are seeing amazing results for our students. And we just know that our districts are better together. I mean, we've kicked off 3 new districts in 2021, and we are hoping to continue to expand that and carrying it into other districts. Oh, yes, references, in case you want references. This is, your nighttime reading if you need something to help you fall asleep, I'm sure. But references, research, et cetera, all on this slide. They are all hot linked. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'm going to close the presentation. We're excited to be able to work with SCO on this, and by combining funding, be able to make this, be able to expand it to even more school districts and reach more schools and teachers. So with that, we're asking your approval on the memorandum of understanding and authorize me to sign the document.
First question for you is you had said there's supports in place. So kid has a sad face, there's an interaction, and probably that's like prevention, right? The first interaction. So then there's people that need more. What supports do you have in place, or what?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the beautiful things about the app is that it actually triages to where the district wants it to go. So the district actually gets to set their threshold themselves. So we have ours set at the 50% mark. And then what happens is not only is it in the attendance area, but it is also then emailed or alerted to specified personnel. So it could be school psychologists, counselors, administrators, et cetera, to do that second line of defense, that tier 2 kind of support and intervention. So whatever the district already has working in place, we incorporate that rather than giving them something new. We work with their existing structures. And then from there, if more support is needed and they need specific referrals to counseling through BHRS, whatever the case may be, there's that avenue of information, including the warm lines and hotlines. They are all mapped to their local resource. So those pieces is that path of communication that utilizes the local resources and plans already put in place to then support the students. So we're not having to try and roll out or recreate the wheel.
So that's the case when you get down to the small districts, out in Hart Ransom or Grattan or those places, they have the same ability as Modesto School District with warm handoffs.
Warm handoffs, and we utilize our, like BHRS with Ruben.
Okay.
We are going to utilize our resources to be able to help and connect them better, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and getting even just that information through our conversations around this program has been a huge light bulb for some. So we're hoping to make better connections in that regard too.
It's great to have after the teacher having a professional determine which direction they need to go at what level. Any other questions for Christine?
Go ahead, Buck. It's okay. No, I just have a few. Christine, Marianne, thank you for your presentation. Can you share which school districts are using this program?
Right now we have all of our SCOPE programs, and we are just now starting implementation with Keys Unified and Houston Unified. And then we actually are working with Madera County Office of Education as well right now.
Okay, and I think I read in there you're getting 75% participation with students?
Yes. Yes.
And what was it with teachers?
So our teachers, I think we are up, well, employees, because it's all staff, not just teachers. Employees were up to, I think, 84% is the last number I had heard.
Okay.
And again, it is voluntary. We're not making anybody do it, but, you know, that strong encouragement of walking into a classroom and your teacher doing the, have you checked in today? Always helps.
I've heard a lot about teachers, that once you get the frown face or whatever you have and you do the check-ins, where do parents come in? Where are they notified that, hey, we might be having an issue here? You might want to check in on your student.
So we are following the district's outlined protocols. So for us, a lot of our students are adults themselves in our SCOPE programs.
Okay.
So that is, you know, what it is, being the adults. But we have not yet hit that milestone with Denair or Houston, but we are planning to follow whatever protocols that they have in place. We are also hoping, because these are 7 through 12 students, after that age of 13, that age of consent has changed to that 13-year-old. There's a privacy issue, so it's whatever they have in place with the parents as a district. We'll be able then to triage either emails out to those parents, or it should be, I mean, because the relationships are there, the local counselor, school counselor, or psychologist making contact if needed, because we don't want to remove the human element. That's the crucial piece.
Okay, so then you'd be following whichever school district policy in
Yeah.
regard to that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Terrence?
Yep. Okay, Christine, thank you. Marianne, thank you very, very much for this presentation. And my first concern when I first saw this on the agenda, and I even called Scott to ask him about it, was that I was afraid this is something that's going to help facilitate distant learning, which it's not. And so I'm okay with that. And so I'm so happy that we're working on this. But it's amazing that we're, you know, what we've done to our kids. It's criminal what we've done to our kids. Okay, now I'm going to go off on my commentary. This has nothing to do with you, Christine. I'm sorry.
All right, I won't take offense.
Yeah. But the fact that we're in this situation, and I know this was something you guys were starting even pre-COVID. This was something that was looked at even pre-COVID, which makes me even more supportive. But what we've done to our kids over the last 20 months is criminal, and the fact that we're in such a worse situation now is a self-inflicted wound, in my opinion, that got us into this spot, which is just typical of California government and what we've done. I look at what we empty out our jails, and then we can't figure out why we have all these homeless people on the streets. You know, that we have people with serious drug, alcohol, mental health issues, and we you know, so we create the problem, and then we come in and try to fix it with another program. So it's very frustrating, this cycle that we seem to do in this state. But again, this has nothing to do with you, and I am so happy you're here with this program. So I just want to make sure I say that to you and Scott and everybody that's doing this. I think this is great. We need to do all we can to help our kids and try to fix the damage that we've done as a result of keeping them out of school all this time. And so and we're seeing the ramifications of that across the country right now. But we've been very much worse here in this state with what we've had to deal with. So this is great. It's a good thing. I mean, our kids need help. We know they need help. Again, it's almost like we hurt them, and now we're trying to fix them. It's a weird thing that we've done here. But I'm glad that we are, and that people like you are working on this, and that Marianne is a part of this, and I know Ruben's BHRS is a part of this. Is when we see people our children and even teachers, I'm sure, that have more acute issues, and they work towards us in our BHRS too. So thank you for this. Sorry you had to listen to me rant.
No, I appreciate the fact that we're giving an opportunity to destigmatize mental health and offer a support that becomes a culture and climate and a way of living, rather than having to always fix. And if we can if we can grow our kids up with this, we'll be miles ahead of where we've been in the past.
Yeah, and the preventative work that you can do, you can keep them out of our BHRS department if you guys are successful.
Yeah.
And I just wish we would stop doing things from a government standpoint that causes these mental health issues. But again, that's a subject for another day. But thank you very much support this and what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, staff, before Okay, I'm going to open it up for public comment.
Hello, Corinne Whitlow. For the record, I was not going to speak today, but here we are. I wasn't able to find, I didn't really take much time to look at the agenda prior to. I worked 55 hours in the last 4 days, so I apologize. And I'm just kind of looking up the CD Health right here on my phone to try to catch up. Obviously, we need something like this for our children. We've talked about the national mental health crisis on our children. The Surgeon General is now talking about it, so it's very much something we need in our community. I know we're working on this with our older kids. I would love to see this expanded to our younger kids. My kids are younger. My kids are struggling. So not just to expand it through districts, but to younger children. I quickly went onto the CD Health website just to see what it's about, clicked on education, and right here on the top it says added mandates. New state and federal mandates are adding even more obligations to monitor and triage mental health challenges for our students. It's hard enough in a normal year, but it's impossible with a shift mixing in-person and distance learning. So it identifies as the mandates as being a barrier to our children's mental health here, and I'm just kind of curious within these district protocols, which I do believe would kind of be important for a presentation like this, of what those protocols are, because that's actually how we are keeping our children safe. What in these protocols is addressing the mandate, which is a huge cause, and kind of like you say, I know this is not your fault, but it is something that is hugely affecting our children. So what in these protocols addresses that? Also mentioned within the trends of mental health for our children that when they initiated Zoom, mental health went down. My concern with that is with the new potential mandate here in California and forcing kids from distance learning, we are going to have more kids experiencing those Zooms, and, well, my kid won't be because I won't be doing that type of schooling, but we are going to see more mental health problems. It said I was looking at when they were starting to talk about the 2021 for the children, they're saying emotional well-being, we're serving them well with a high rate, but if you're looking at the trending, the little arrow, it's going down. That's concerning to me. These trends, I'm interested in how they correlate with the different mandates that have kind of been implemented within our community, time frame-wise. These children now have to worry about their parents losing their jobs. These children now have to worry about wearing a mask. And they can't read each other's emotions. It's really hard. I have a 2-year-old who has received services because he has delays, and a lot of that is contributed to the lack of social interaction throughout COVID, and he has a speech delay. And it's amazing once I kind of stopped working within the system to try to help him and just got him out in the community and really just had him experience people, how much he really started to thrive. So these mandates are affecting our children. The things that we're doing are affecting our children. So I'm just interested in the protocols addressing these things. Yeah, I don't have much else to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing that, I'll bring it back to the board. One last comment. The teachers is the first line of defense. And I start thinking about what the expectation of teachers is nowadays has grown exponentially since when I was a kid. And good, bad, or indifferent, it takes a special person to be a good teacher. And so I always talk about, you're not just teaching kids arithmetic anymore. You're now a mental health, at least a first responder. And my mom had always told us when we were kids to smile, because you may be making a difference for someone else when you smile and talk to someone. And that's so true, and we have to keep remembering that, because as we become more, surrounded by, or not surrounded by people, the opposite of isolated, not surrounded by people, we have to make more of an effort to engage people. So again, appreciate what you've done here, and SCO trying to help out kids. And I think this is going to be money well spent. All right, if no other comments, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
We have a motion.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion again carries unanimously. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you for
Thanks,
your
Marianne.
time.
Move on to correspondence.
This board has received a letter from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development regarding the performance evaluation of Stanislaus County's Community Development Block Grant and the Emergency Solutions Grant programs for program year 2020.
Refer to the Department of Planning and Community Development.
This board has received the claims as noted on the agenda.
Acknowledge receipt of claims and refer to the Chief Executive Office. Are there any Board of Supervisor reports?
I'm just hoping that the hospital you guys work for can talk to Jordan. I'm sure you guys are working on that. Perfect, all right.
So a couple of things I quickly want to point out. This is the last meeting for Raul Mendez, the last official board meeting. I know that's probably on the CEO's report. He's moving on to Merced County as the Chief Executive Officer, so we'll have him right next to us in an adjoining county. Again, we've had a long history. He was the city manager before. He worked for the county, community development director, or community, it's not community development, it's community, there's an official title, community manager. And so we worked closely. Then he went to the city of Houston for 6 years, back with the CEO's office as an executive. It's been a tremendous honor to work with you, my friend. Wish you the best. And I did want to introduce Deputy Joe Camarda, who's keeping us safe in the back. And you're a retired deputy, right? You're on reserve. So spent a lot of time here in the Sheriff's Department. Appreciate you being here today. All right, CEO.
Thank you very much, Chairman Chiesa, members of the board. And just stealing a little bit of my thunder, but those words were very well put. I want to congratulate Raul Mendez on his appointment to County Executive Officer for Merced County. And also just state the obvious, we will always have a leadership chair open for you, Mr. Mendez, so maybe someday our paths will cross again. A couple of items to update you on. Wanted to let you know that the 8 Central Valley counties that we traditionally work with, we are working on a letter to Governor Newsom requesting support and advocacy for various needs through the state budget process, including economic development, water resources, other critical solutions for Central Valley residents. We'll keep you posted on this, but we're hoping to have some type of interaction with the governor early next year to try to keep Central Valley issues on the governor's radar. We've done this a few times already and generally have some mixed results, but it's worth pursuing for sure. Also just wanted to reiterate action that the board took yesterday, because it wasn't on today's agenda, that the board did approve a new supervisorial district map. It was map alternative number 3 that was developed and approved by the board's redistricting commission. So I encourage all of you, you can find out all of that information on our redistricting website. Please feel free to go there and take a look. And then I also need to acknowledge and report out that we did receive information yesterday, along with everyone else in California, that the California Department of Public Health has issued a new masking ordinance or order that will go into effect on December 15th, tomorrow. The order states that it is effective through January 15th of next year. We had lots of questions that appeared to be unanswered in the body of the communication that we were provided, so our public health team is working actively to try to get some other questions answered so that we can appropriately advise the public. We'll bring that information to you as soon as we have it. That's all I have today.
Any questions of the CEO? We do have a closed session. County Council Bose?
Yes, we have closed session this morning. A conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. Agency negotiators are Jody Hayes, Tamara Thomas, Bert Numphy, and the labor organization is Service Employees International Union, Local 521.
Any public comment on closed session? Did you have something else to add? Because this will be your last chance, Stephen.
I know the schedule for board meetings for next year hasn't been posted yet. When is the next board meeting?
We did adopt the calendar, so.
Or at least it wasn't posted as of yesterday.
I will follow up with our IT department regarding that. That information has been provided to them. Our next board meeting is January 11th, a 9 a.m. meeting.
All right. Thank you very much.
That's almost a month off. Wow. Impressive. Yeah, Merry Christmas to all of you. All right, if there's nothing else for the good of the order, we're adjourning to closed session.